Hey everyone, ready to dive deep into the world of Turbo? Released on July 17, 2013, this film has sparked endless discussions, and today, we're uncovering every thrilling detail. If you enjoy this deep dive, don't forget to hit that like button. It really helps us grow. And for more incredible movie explorations and hidden gems, subscribe to the channel. Now, let's unravel the magic behind this cinematic masterpiece. From the moment the film opens, we're transported into a vibrant and hyper-stylized suburban garden, where life moves at a snail's pace, literally. Our protagonist, Theo, isn't your average garden snail. While others are content with the slow and steady rhythm of their leafy world, Theo dreams of speed. Obsessed with Indy 500 racing and his hero guy Gagny, he watches old tapes, times his laps with a stopwatch, and envisions himself as something more. It's this relentless passion that instantly sets the tone for a story about breaking boundaries and defying expectations. Ryan Reynolds voices Theo, and his performance gives the character an unmistakable charm. Eager, slightly insecure, but unshakably hopeful. That blend of naivety and ambition is key to making Theo's journey feel emotionally real, even in a world where snails race cars. When Theo's life is upended during a freak accident involving a high-speed drag race and nitrous oxide infusion, the results are as hilarious as they are fantastical. He's suddenly turbocharged, capable of speeds that no snail, or human for that matter, should ever reach. The transformation sequence itself is a visual highlight. Turbo's body glows with electric blue energy, and the sound design shifts dramatically. From the squishy, natural ambience of the garden to the humming, pulsing roar of an engine. It's as if the entire tone of the film shifts in that moment. A clever cinematic cue that we've entered a new phase of storytelling. Turbo's journey from the garden to the racetrack is propelled not just by his abilities, but by the oddball collection of characters he meets along the way. Enter Tito, a taco truck driver and dreamer in his own right, voiced with infectious enthusiasm by Michael Pena. Tito believes in underdogs in long shots, and when he sees what Turbo can do, he imagines the impossible, entering a snail into the Indy 500. This is where Turbo becomes more than just a talking animal film. It taps into themes of belief, community, and the transformative power of support. Tito and Turbo's bond becomes the heart of the movie, a mirror of mutual dreams, both crazy and courageous. The supporting cast of racing snails adds a whole new flavor to the film. Samuel L. Jackson's Whiplash steals every scene he's in with swagger and attitude. Snoop Dogg as Smooth Move adds slickness and style. Maya Rudolph, Ben Schwartz, and others round out the crew with diverse personalities that keep the momentum fresh and funny. These snails have custom shells, unique styles, and a tight-knit camaraderie that transforms Turbo's one snail mission into a full-blown team effort. Their training montage is pure animated joy, full of speed, explosions, and slapstick humor that'll make you laugh whether you're 5 or 50. Then there's Guy Gagny, voiced with over-the-top arrogance by Bill Hader. Gagny isn't just a foil to Turbo, he's a commentary on hollow ambition. While Turbo races for meaning and fulfillment, Gagny races for ego, recognition, and legacy. Their eventual clash isn't just about speed. It's about why we chase our dreams in the first place. The film handles this dynamic with surprising maturity, culminating in a climactic Indy 500 sequence that blends tension, humor, and heart in equal measure. The animation during the final race is breathtaking. The speed effects, the roar of the crowd, the sheer scale of the stadium. It's a sensory feast. And at its core, there's this tiny, glowing snail pushing beyond every limit, not for fame, but to prove that dreams, no matter how absurd, are valid and powerful. Turbo's win isn't just a personal triumph. It's symbolic. It tells every viewer that greatness isn't defined by size, species, or circumstances. It's defined by heart. Behind the scenes, Turbo was a labor of love for director David Soren, who developed the story over several years before DreamWorks backed the project. The voice cast was carefully chosen to reflect the film's diverse and energetic tone, and the soundtrack blends adrenaline-pumping beats with nostalgic nods, including Snoop Dogg's original track, Let the Bass Go. Composer Henry Jackman adds an emotional depth to the action with a score that seamlessly transitions between whimsy and excitement. The production design stands out for its duality. The garden world is soft, earthy, and homey, while the human world is sharp, metallic, and fast-paced. The contrast isn't just visual. It represents the inner journey of Turbo himself, who must navigate between two worlds to become his true self. Details like the glow in Turbo's shell, the slick track textures, and even the comic timing expressions on each character's face elevate the movie into something more artful than expected. Though not a massive box office titan by DreamWorks standards, Turbo earned a respectable $282 million globally and built enough love to inspire a spin-off series, Turbo Fast, on Netflix. The show takes the Snail Squad into new stunt-filled adventures, keeping the spirit of the original alive for younger audiences and expanding the universe in fun and creative ways. In retrospect, Turbo may not have been the most groundbreaking animated film of its time, but it carved out a unique niche with its underdog charm, high-octane visuals, and sincere message. It's the kind of movie that leaves you smiling, cheering, and maybe, just maybe, dreaming a little bigger yourself. Because in the world of Turbo, no dream is too fast, no dreamer too small. When Turbo sped onto screens on July 17, 2013, audiences were treated to a spectacle that seemed impossible at first glance. A movie about a snail with a need for speed. Released in the heart of summer by DreamWorks Animation, this colorful underdog tale seemed destined to be just another lighthearted entry in the animation genre. But beneath its shiny shell and high-octane concept, Turbo revealed itself to be something far more meaningful. It was a film that embraced the absurd with a wink and a grin, yet never lost sight of the emotional resonance that comes from chasing impossible dreams. It's not just about a supercharged snail. It's about hope, belief, community, and the relentless desire to become more than what the world says you are. What makes Turbo extraordinary isn't just the slick animation or the kinetic energy of its action scenes. It's the soul at its center. This film could have easily relied on visual gimmicks and snail speed puns, but it dares to reach deeper. At its heart lies a message both timeless and universal. Greatness doesn't depend on where you start. It depends on how far you're willing to go. That's what elevates Turbo beyond the confines of its premise. It's bold, it's vibrant, and it's surprisingly inspiring. And in a cinematic landscape crowded with superheroes, sequels, and reboots, this one slimy underdog raced its way into audiences' hearts by doing the unexpected, by slowing down to speed up. The story begins in a community of garden snails nestled in a tomato patch in the San Fernando Valley. This is a world defined by caution, routine, and a rigid belief in staying safe, slow, and hidden. Within this mundane universe lives Theo, a snail whose dreams are anything but average. Voiced by Ryan Reynolds with a mix of innocence and fervor, Theo longs for the thrill of the racetrack. He idolizes Guy Gagne, a flamboyant five-time Indianapolis 500 champion, and spends his time obsessing over racing stats and homemade time trials. But to his fellow snails, and especially his overly practical brother Chet, voiced with weary skepticism by Paul Giamatti, Theo's ambitions are not just foolish, they're dangerous. The snail world doesn't tolerate outliers, and Theo is as outlier as they come. Then fate intervenes in a way that only animation can make believable and wondrous. After a freak accident during a nighttime street race, Theo gets sucked into a souped-up dragster's engine compartment and is doused in nitrous oxide. What should have been his end turns into his metamorphosis. Theo awakens glowing, supercharged, and with powers no snail or human has ever possessed. He's faster than anything on the planet. Turbo is born. This transformation sequence is a triumph of animation and sound design. The fluid movement, the streaks of blue neon coursing through Turbo's shell, the thrumming pulse of the engine's heartbeat. All of it creates an atmosphere of awe. You can almost feel the electricity snapping off the screen. Suddenly, what was a small story in a garden bursts wide open with possibilities. Now this tiny creature with big dreams has the means to chase them in the real world. But as Turbo wisely shows, the dream is never the end. It's only the beginning. Turbo's journey from garden oddball to legitimate racer takes a turn when he and his brother are captured by a pair of taco stand owners, Tito and Angelo Lopez. While Angelo is a jaded realist, Tito, played with exuberant warmth by Michael Pena, is a kindred spirit to Turbo. He's another dreamer in a world that doesn't reward big visions. It's through Tito that Turbo finds not just opportunity, but belonging. Together, they hatch a wild plan to enter a snail in the Indianapolis 500. Sounds insane. And it is. But that's part of the film's charm. It leans fully into the ridiculousness and makes you believe in it anyway. That's no small feat. It's a testament to the storytelling that by the time Turbo is prepping for the biggest race in the world, we aren't questioning the logistics, we're emotionally invested. We want him to win, not because he's fast, but because he believes. And because others, Tito, the snail crew, even Chet, believe in him too. Along the way, we meet a vibrant cast of supporting characters. The racing snail crew, Whiplash, Burn, Skidmark, White Shadow, and Smooth Move, are voiced by a hilarious ensemble including Samuel L. Jackson, Maya Rudolph, Ben Schwartz, Mike Bell, and Snoop Dogg. Each brings unique personality and humor to the film, creating a crew that feels like a fast and furious family made of mollusks. Their dynamic is a constant source of comic relief and heart, especially as they train Turbo with a mix of unorthodox stunts and snappy one-liners. The chemistry is infectious, and the energy they bring helps the film maintain momentum through its midsection. Standing in stark contrast is the film's antagonist, Guy Gagne, voiced with manic grandeur by Bill Hader. He's everything Turbo idolized until he meets him. Gagne is the embodiment of what happens when ambition curdles into narcissism. He doesn't just want to win, he wants to be worshipped. His interaction with Turbo reveals the darkness behind the glamour of greatness, challenging our hero to define what success really means. The final showdown between Turbo and Gagne on the Indy 500 track is not just a race. It's a reckoning. Pits humility against hubris, passion against ego. The race itself is a masterclass in animated tension. Every twist and turn is rendered with stunning attention to detail. You can feel the G-forces, the squeal of tires, the near misses that send a jolt through your chest. Turbo's glowing trail becomes a symbol of hope streaking across the track, especially when disaster strikes and he's left vulnerable. In one breathtaking moment, Turbo's powers fade. He's injured, his shell cracked, his speed gone. It's a moment of crushing defeat, and then clarity, because what follows isn't a miraculous resurgence of powers. It's grit. Turbo finishes the race not with speed, but with sheer determination, dragging himself across the line as the world watches. And he wins. Not because he was fastest, but because he never stopped. That ending hits hard. Not because it's a victory, but because it's earned. Every frame leading up to it has been about dreaming, daring, and doing. And Turbo earns its emotional payoff in full. It tells kids and adults alike that setbacks aren't endings. That sometimes, believing in yourself is the greatest power of all. On the cultural side, Turbo might not have racked up record-breaking numbers at the box office, but it struck a chord with its audience. Its message resonated across age groups, especially among younger viewers who saw themselves in Turbo's relentless hopefulness. The film even inspired a Netflix animated series, Turbo Fast, which expanded the Snailverse and brought more high-speed antics to a new generation of fans. The fact that this niche story about a racing snail could blossom into a multi-platform franchise speaks volumes about its underlying impact. Visually, Turbo is a feast. The animation team at DreamWorks balanced realism with cartoon flair, creating a world that felt grounded yet fantastical. The textures, lighting, and dynamic camera work during racing scenes rival live-action sequences in their thrill and clarity. The film's use of color is also noteworthy. Bright, saturated tones dominate the garden and cityscape, while metallic sheens and glowing effects turn every race into a spectacle. But perhaps what lingers most is the heart. Turbo is a film that dares to take something tiny and elevate it to the extraordinary. It doesn't mock ambition, it celebrates it. It doesn't downplay weirdness, it embraces it. And it doesn't preach, it inspires. It's a movie where a snail races with the world watching, and instead of laughing, we cheer. Because deep down, we all want to be seen for who we are. We all want our dreams, no matter how ridiculous, to matter. So if you've ever been told you're too slow, too small, too unrealistic, Turbo is the cinematic reply. It's the story that says speed isn't everything, heart is. And in this high-speed, high-stakes, high-emotion ride, that's the message that truly wins. In the sun-soaked gardens of the San Fernando Valley, where life moves at a pace best measured in inches, a snail named Theo dares to dream differently. While his peers spend their days tending to tomatoes and avoiding danger, Theo, who'll later become the Turbo we know, lives for speed. His days begin and end with the roar of race car engines. Not real ones, but the televised glory of the Indianapolis 500 and his idol, Guy Gagne. With the voice of Ryan Reynolds breathing vibrant optimism into him, Theo stands out as a dreamer among snails who value safety above all else. He mimics pit stops, crafts homemade tracks, and times himself with stopwatch precision, always shaving fractions of a second from his previous best, even if those best times are still excruciatingly slow. To everyone around him, Theo's obsession with racing is baffling, even dangerous. His older brother, Chet, acts as both protector and critic, doing his best to rein Theo in before he gets himself hurt, or worse, crushed. Paul Giamatti brings a world-weary gravity to Chet, making him feel less like a buzzkill and more like someone who's seen too many dreams dashed under a lawnmower. His concern is genuine, even if his tone is grating. Chet, like the rest of the snail colony, believes that purpose comes from consistency, not ambition. But for Theo, mediocrity is suffocating. Theo's desire to be more, faster, freer, seen, boils over during the community's daily work routine. He tries to prove himself in a tomato harvesting competition, but chaos erupts when he accidentally causes a chain reaction that wrecks the crop and nearly kills himself in the process. The scene is a perfect balance of comedy and catastrophe. Tomatoes explode, snails shriek, and Theo's reputation crashes harder than a rookie racer in turn one. He's publicly humiliated and demoted from tomato duty, effectively stripped of what little respect he had left. The colony turns its back on him, and even Chet seems resigned to his brother's failure. But the world is about to change. That very night, while sulking on a freeway overpass, Theo is drawn to the glow of streetlights and the siren song of engines revving in the distance. It's here, in a scene buzzing with adrenaline and neon, that fate takes a turn. Drawn like a moth to flame, Theo crawls onto a car involved in a high-speed street race. As engines roar and tires burn rubber, the snail clings for dear life. Then it happens. He's sucked into the supercharger of a drag racer and bathed in a blast of nitrous oxide. The screen flashes with blinding light, electricity crackles, and time itself seems to freeze. The moment is surreal, pulsating with danger and awe. What should have been the end for Theo instead becomes a rebirth. He awakens changed. His shell now pulses with blue energy, his eyes flicker like headlights, and when he moves fast. Unbelievably fast. Theo has become something else entirely. At first, he doesn't realize it. But as he stumbles back to his garden, zipping through sprinkler systems and past stunned insects, the truth dawns. He can now break the sound barrier, create shockwaves, and leave behind streaks of glowing light. The once slowest creature in the garden is now its fastest. The sequence capturing his first real speed run is exhilarating, a blur of color, sound, and wonder, as he darts through the garden like a lightning bolt in miniature. But with power comes exposure. His newfound abilities don't go unnoticed for long. When he inadvertently causes another garden disaster, this time by breaking the speed limit by about 1,000, Chet catches on. A confrontation brews between the two brothers. Chet doesn't see a miracle. He sees danger. He sees his brother diving headfirst into a dream that can only end in heartbreak. Theo, now calling himself Turbo, refuses to listen. For the first time, he feels alive, and he's not about to return to tomato duty. Their argument is cut short when the two are captured by a passing taco truck driver, Tito Lopez. Played with infectious enthusiasm by Michael Pena, Tito is a dreamer just like Turbo. He and his brother Angelo run a struggling taco stand in a fading strip mall, and Tito's latest idea is as outlandish as Turbo's dream: hold snail races to draw in customers. The moment Turbo shows off his speed in a makeshift racetrack behind the Dos Brothers taco stand, everything changes. Tito sees not just a fast snail but an opportunity. Suddenly, Turbo's dream starts colliding with reality. And this is where the heart of the movie starts to race just as fast as its hero. The dusty, downtrodden strip mall becomes a hub of unlikely hope. Tito introduces Turbo to a colorful group of fellow dreamers: the laid-back mechanic Bobby, the nail salon diva Kim Lai, the stoic hobby shop owner Paz, and a crew of racing snails led by the electrifying Whiplash, voiced by Samuel L. Jackson. Whiplash and his team Burn, Skidmark, Smooth Move, White Shadow are an eclectic, adrenaline junkie group of snails with charisma to burn. They may not have powers like Turbo, but they've got style, grit, and personality in spades. At first, Whiplash is unimpressed by Turbo's bravado. The newcomer is fast, sure, but speed alone doesn't make you a racer. It takes courage, strategy, and the ability to handle pressure. What follows is a hilarious and high-octane training montage, as the racing snails put Turbo through his paces, teaching him what it truly means to compete. From dodging falling dominoes to high-flying stunts involving fireworks and zip lines, these scenes explode with color and energy, all underscored by a thumping, pulse-quickening soundtrack. And through it all, Turbo begins to earn the respect of the crew. Meanwhile, Tito has set his sights even higher, on the Indianapolis 500. Everyone thinks he's lost his mind. Snails don't belong on racetracks. They belong in gardens, maybe petting zoos at best. But Tito, like Turbo, doesn't believe in limits. He drives to Indianapolis, Turbo in tow, determined to enter the snail in the legendary race. The scene where they arrive at the brimming stadium is awe-inspiring. Turbo stares out over the enormous track, the stands filled with thousands of fans, and for a brief moment, doubt creeps in. The scale of the dream suddenly feels overwhelming. But fate once again intervenes. When Turbo breaks free and demonstrates his speed for the Indy officials and crowd, jaws drop, cameras flash, the world takes notice. A petition goes viral. The impossible becomes probable. The story of the turbocharged snail spreads like wildfire across social media, news outlets, and racing circles. Even Guy Gagné takes notice. The champ, played with larger-than-life flair by Bill Hader, feigns enthusiasm while secretly seething. For a snail to steal his spotlight? It's unthinkable. He sees Turbo as a threat, not to his title but to his legacy. With the race on the horizon, pressure mounts. Turbo begins to question if he truly belongs. Chet, ever the realist, tries one more time to pull him back from the edge. Their bond is strained but never broken. And as the starting flag draws closer, a storm brews, emotional, literal, and narrative. The story has hurtled toward its midpoint with the velocity of its title character. And now, with everything on the line, the real test awaits. Because up to this point, Turbo has been driven by power, his newfound ability, his once-in-a-lifetime speed. But soon, he'll have to race not as a miracle, but as a snail with heart. He'll have to face rivals, critics, and his own fears. And most of all, he'll have to prove that being fast isn't what makes you a hero. It's having the courage to keep going when the odds say you shouldn't. As the sun sets over the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, with the crowd buzzing and tension mounting, Turbo leaves us dangling at the edge of the race line. What started as a dream is now a national phenomenon. What began in a tomato garden has reached the pinnacle of motorsports. But the story isn't done yet, not by a long shot. Because the second half of this ride is where everything changes. As the engines rumble and the stands at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway tremble with anticipation, Turbo, the unlikeliest contender in racing history, finds himself at the starting line of destiny. The second half of Turbo catapults us straight into the heart of the impossible, where an ordinary garden snail with extraordinary speed prepares to face off against the fastest cars and the fiercest drivers on Earth. Among them is Guy Gagné, the larger-than-life champion and Turbo's lifelong idol. But as the race looms closer, so does the realization that Gagny may not be the hero Turbo had once believed. The green flag drops, and the Indy 500 roars to life. Turbo explodes off the line, a blur of blue light, shocking the crowd and commentators. His speed is undeniable, but so is his inexperience. He weaves through the lanes, narrowly avoiding collisions, but his tiny size presents a massive challenge. Every gust of wind, every tire spin, every bump in the road could spell disaster. The visual dynamism of the race is breathtaking. Cinematographers transform the track into a living beast, pulsating with danger and energy. Yet amid the spectacle, a more personal battle begins to emerge. Turbo's confidence begins to waver as he struggles to maintain his momentum over the grueling length of the race. Cars jostle, accidents occur, and his tiny frame endures punishment it was never meant to withstand. In one particularly harrowing moment, he's nearly crushed by a crash ahead, the debris flying past like meteorites. The crowd gasps. The dream teeters on a knife's edge. Watching from the stands are Tito and the entire strip mall crew, Kimlai, Paz, Bobby, and even more crucially, Chet. While the rest of the crew has always rooted for Turbo's wild ambition, Chet has remained skeptical, protective, and afraid. But seeing his brother defy logic, risk everything, and inspire an audience of thousands, something inside Chet begins to shift. He starts to believe not in the speed, but in the spirit behind it. That belief is put to the test when Turbo, while leading the pack, begins to falter. His shell flickers. The once glowing blue lines dim. The nitrous charge he absorbed during the freak accident is burning out. Every second forward is a struggle. With a haunting screech, his speed begins to fade, and just like that, the cars begin to pass him. He's not just slowing down, he's losing. The dream is slipping through his antennae. Then comes the twist no one saw coming. Guy Gagny, the embodiment of everything Turbo once idolized, reveals his true nature. Threatened by the idea of being beaten by a snail, Gagny turns vicious. In a chilling moment, he bumps Turbo deliberately, sending the tiny racer flying into the side rail. It's not just foul play, it's betrayal. The race halts. The crowd gasps in horror, and Turbo lies crumpled, his shell cracked, motionless. This is the emotional low point, the moment that hammers the heart. Everything Turbo has worked for appears broken. He's injured, humiliated, and worse, alone. He begins to doubt not just his chances but his very identity. Maybe he was just a garden snail playing racer. Maybe Chet was right all along. The weight of defeat presses down like gravity. But from the sidelines, something shifts again. Chet, long the voice of doubt, bursts through the track's perimeter and finds Turbo. In one of the film's most poignant moments, Chet lays aside all his fears and says what Turbo has longed to hear. He believes in him, not because he's fast, not because of the nitro, but because he never gave up, because he tried when no one else dared. And that belief becomes the spark that reignites everything. With renewed resolve, Turbo crawls, broken shell, fading powers, and all back onto the track. The crowd erupts. Gagny stares in disbelief. Turbo is limping, not flying. He's dragging his damaged shell, inching forward while the others race ahead. But the spirit in his eyes tells us this story is far from over. Gagny, furious, decides to end it. In a desperate attempt to block Turbo, he swerves, corners him, and tries to force him off the track. But in a stunning act of defiance, Turbo pulls a move no one expects. Using the very crack in his shell that once symbolized failure, he allows nitrous vapors to escape in short, controlled bursts, turning his injury into innovation. Like a rocket on its last thrusters, he surges forward with one final burst of glory. What follows is a climax drenched in heart-pounding tension. Gagny and Turbo go wheel to whisker in a final stretch that seems to slow time itself. Sparks fly, engines scream, the finish line looms. And then, in the most poetic of finishes, Turbo uses his shell's remaining energy to slide, literally slide, across the track, just inches ahead of Gagny, collapsing into a heap as the checkered flag waves. The silence that follows is thunderous. Then, an eruption. The crowd goes wild. Commentators lose their minds. Phones capture the moment that will flood headlines for weeks. Turbo has won. Not just the race, but the right to believe in the impossible. Not because of luck. Not because of magic. But because he kept moving forward, even when the world tried to stop him. As reporters rush the track and fans cheer, Turbo is lifted high. Not by humans, but by his fellow racing snails. Whiplash and crew beam with pride. Tito cries. Chet holds his brother close. The strip mall family has done what no one believed possible. They turned a dream into a phenomenon. The movie doesn't end with a lavish party or a red carpet celebration. Instead, it returns to where it all began. The garden. But it's not the same place anymore. The snails no longer see Turbo as a reckless outcast. They see him as a hero. The colony that once mocked his ambition now races through miniature tracks. Dreams ignited by one snail's refusal to settle for average. And in a final montage, we see life after the Indy 500. Tito's taco stand becomes a hit. The racing snails tour the country, living their dream. Turbo, now famous, races not for fame but for joy, for the thrill, for the belief that limits are only real if you accept them. Every thread, from Theo's dreams under the tomato leaves to the roar of the Indy 500, ties together in a story that reminds us why we root for the underdog. Turbo isn't just about speed. It's about belief, about finding your own lane, no matter how ridiculous it seems. It's about never letting the world's expectations decide what you're capable of. And when the screen fades to black, we're left with more than just memories of an animated snail. We're left with the spark of possibility, a reminder that sometimes even the slowest among us are built for something extraordinary, if only they dare to hit the gas. In the heart of Turbo, beneath the high-octane thrills and improbable underdog triumphs, lies a rich tapestry of characters whose motivations, flaws, and dreams fuel the film's emotional engine. Each one brings a pulse to the narrative, shaping it into something far more profound than a story about a fast snail. These characters are not mere passengers on Turbo's journey. They are co-drivers, each steering the story in unique and unforgettable directions. It begins, of course, with Theo, the snail the world would soon know as Turbo. Theo is a dreamer in a world that discourages dreaming. Living in a tomato garden by day and obsessively watching car races by night, he's not just infatuated with speed, he aches for it. In a society built around caution, where every second is measured in inches, Theo's need for velocity is seen as a defect. But what makes him compelling is not just his need to go fast, but why he needs to. It's not vanity. It's not fame. It's identity. Theo wants to matter. He wants to break out of the mundanity of a world that's told him since birth that his limits were already decided. Ryan Reynolds voices Turbo with a perfect balance of vulnerability and eager optimism. He doesn't push the bravado too hard. His performance always leaves room for us to feel the inner conflict. There's a certain ache in the way he chases after speed, like a kid longing for something he can't quite define. His voice performance brings humor, yes, but more importantly, heart. Counterbalancing Turbo's relentless drive is his older brother, Chet, voiced with hilarious, exasperated energy by Paul Giamatti. Where Turbo sees possibility, Chet sees peril. He's the responsible one, the realist, the protector. But Chet isn't just the grumpy brother trope. His caution comes from love. He's seen too much failure, too much danger, to let his brother become another cautionary tale. His arc is subtle but emotionally potent. Watching Chet go from skeptic to supporter is one of the film's most rewarding emotional payoffs. Giamatti infuses the role with a grounded warmth. His comedic timing is impeccable, but it's the quiet moments of concern and eventual pride that leave a lasting mark. Together, Turbo and Chet form the emotional spine of the film. Their dynamic isn't just about disagreement. It's about the push and pull between fear and belief. And it's only when Chet lets go of his fears and Turbo embraces more than just speed that they both evolve. Not into who they wanted to be, but into who they were meant to be. Outside the shell of the snail world, there's Tito, an underdog in his own right. Tito is a taco stand worker, dreamer, and eternal optimist. Voiced with laid-back charm by Michael Pena, Tito believes in things that no one else does. Whether it's racing snails or reviving a struggling strip mall, he sees potential where others see lost causes. Tito and Turbo are spiritual mirrors of one another, both dismissed by the world, both driven by belief. But unlike Turbo, Tito's optimism is tempered by experience. He's failed before, but refuses to stop trying. His connection with Turbo is instantaneous and sincere, not born out of profit, but from shared hope. What makes Tito so endearing is his refusal to quit. He could have walked away when no one showed up at the strip mall race. He could have given up when investors laughed him out of rooms. But he didn't, because like Turbo, he knows the value of a long shot. Pena brings a warmth to Tito that elevates every scene he's in. He's funny, sure, but he also grounds the human side of the story. Without Tito, Turbo wouldn't just lack a sponsor, he'd lack a kindred spirit. Tito's older brother Angelo, voiced by Luis Guzman, serves as his foil. Angelo is practical, cynical, and dismissive. But unlike Chet, whose doubt is rooted in love, Angelo's skepticism comes from fear of risk. He's seen Tito fail, and failure is expensive. While Angelo may seem like an obstacle, he serves a vital narrative role. He embodies the world's resistance to dreams. Yet even he undergoes a transformation. As Turbo gains traction, Angelo slowly warms up, and by the final act, he too is cheering at the Indy 500, proof that belief is contagious. Then there's the Snail Crew, Turbo's unlikely pit team, and a band of eccentric personalities that could rival any ensemble. First among them is Whiplash, voiced with undeniable swagger by Samuel L. Jackson. Whiplash is the leader of the Racing Snails, a crusty veteran with the wisdom of a sage and the attitude of a drill sergeant. He's not easily impressed, especially by a garden snail who thinks he can go fast just because he glows blue. But Whiplash's arc isn't just about mentoring Turbo. It's about recognizing greatness and knowing when to get out of the way. Jackson brings an edge to Whiplash, but underneath the bravado, there's real respect. When he finally nods to Turbo in approval, it's not just an earned moment. It's a passing of the torch. The rest of Whiplash's crew, Burn, Skidmark, Smooth Move, and White Shadow, each add color and comedy to the narrative. Maya Rudolph's Burn is sharp-tongued and fierce, with a soft spot for Chet that adds a delightful layer to the story. Ben Schwartz's Skidmark is the wild one, full of bad ideas and manic energy. Snoop Dogg's Smooth Move lives up to his name, all silky charm and slow-motion wisdom. And Michael Bell's White Shadow, well, he thinks he's invisible, which makes him instantly lovable. What makes this crew work is not just their humor, but their function. They're Turbo's found family. They teach him racing, resilience, and most importantly, that different doesn't mean broken. And looming over it all is Guy Gagne, voiced with slick precision by Bill Hader. Gagne is more than a racing legend. He is the symbol of what Turbo wants to become, and later everything he must reject. At first, Gagne is everything Turbo aspires to: charismatic, successful, worshipped. But beneath the veneer lies arrogance, pride, and a willingness to cheat to preserve his legacy. Gagne's turn from idol to antagonist is one of the film's most impactful pivots. Hader plays it with just enough charm to make the betrayal sting. He doesn't cackle or monologue. He lets the cracks show slowly. The revelation that heroes can become villains adds real thematic weight to the story, challenging Turbo to define his values on his own terms. Even the minor human characters, like Kim Lai, the nail salon owner with unexpected racing enthusiasm, or Bobby and Paz, Tito's fellow shopkeepers, each bring texture to the world. They could have been one-note comedic reliefs, but they're not. They become believers. They pitch in. They support. And in doing so, they remind us that even the most overlooked among us have the power to make a difference. Each character in Turbo is a gear in the machine. Remove one and the whole story loses torque. But together, they create a symphony of dreams, fears, triumphs, and transformations. From the cautious Chet to the audacious Tito, from the humble garden to the roaring Indy 500, their arcs are not just character developments. They are affirmations. Affirmations that belief can change minds, that failure is part of flight, and that even the smallest voice, if it's determined enough, can echo louder than a stadium full of doubt. By the time the credits roll, we realize this wasn't just a movie about a fast snail. It was a story about community, resilience, and redefining what's possible. The characters don't just bring the story to life. They become the reason we care, the reason we cheer, and the reason we believe. Because deep down, every one of us has a little Turbo inside, waiting for someone to say, "You can do this. You were built for it." From the moment Turbo hits the screen with the roar of engines echoing across the quiet, sun-drenched tomato garden, it becomes clear that this isn't just a movie about speed. It's a celebration of ambition, possibility, and the deep cultural legacy of racing itself. But beyond the adrenaline-fueled premise and heartwarming character arcs lies an intricate layer of subtle nods, clever visual cues, and sly Easter eggs that reward viewers who dare to look closer. These details, often buried in the background or hidden in dialogue, not only enrich the narrative but reveal the creator's deep love for motorsports, storytelling, and animation history. Take the opening scene where Theo, yet to be reborn as Turbo, immerses himself in footage of legendary racer Guy Gagne. The camera pans across Theo's cluttered garage of sorts, which is actually a makeshift shrine built into an empty tomato can, a discarded toy car, and a racing flag made of leaf and thread. It's a moment rich with layered meaning. Not only does it serve as a metaphor for how dreams often grow from scraps, but it's also a subtle homage to real-life fan culture. The way kids build altars to their heroes from whatever materials they can find. If you look closely, you'll spot a toy die-cast car with a number suspiciously close to Lightning McQueen's 95. An affectionate wink to Pixar's Cars, the spiritual cousin of Turbo in the world of animated racing epics. The movie continues to layer references within references, especially during the snail race scene at the Starlight Plaza strip mall. Each member of Whiplash's crew is introduced with a dazzling burst of personality, but hidden behind their grand entrances are tiny details that reveal who they really are. Byrne, voiced by Maya Rudolph, ignites the ground with a trail of sparklers, not just for Flash, but as a cheeky nod to her fiery temperament and perhaps even to the stylized flame detailing found on real drag racers. Smooth Move glides into frame with a disco ball sheen, his shell shimmering with glitter and neon. The pattern? A tiny homage to Snoop Dogg's love for lowrider culture, complete with microhydraulics that nod to 90s West Coast car scenes. White Shadow's name might seem like a throwaway joke, his assertion that he's fast, like a shadow undercut by the obvious fact that shadows don't move. But dig deeper and there's a clever play at work. In film, the white shadow is often used to enhance the visibility of fast-moving objects in animation, especially in hand-drawn sequences. It's a term animators know well. A cheeky, self-aware nod hidden in plain sight. Then there's the Indy 500 sequence, an absolute treasure trove of subtle visual storytelling and Easter eggs, beginning the moment Turbo enters the massive speedway. For those familiar with real-life motorsports, the setting is strikingly accurate. The animators didn't just create a generic racetrack. They studied the Indianapolis Motor Speedway down to the smallest detail. From the yard of bricks to the precise curvature of the grandstands, every shot is a love letter to the racing world. Even the trackside sponsors, playfully rebranded as snail-friendly companies like Fast Shell Gasoline and Snail Boys Tires, are layered jokes that mimic real NASCAR and IndyCar sponsors with meticulous parody. And speaking of sponsors, pay close attention during the press conference when Turbo is introduced to the media. The backdrop is cluttered with mock logos, including Enno Snail Energy Drink and Speedy Go Insurance, the latter being a playful riff on Geico, whose mascot is famously a fast-talking reptile. It's these visual puns that not only add humor but reinforce the world-building, the idea that snails could, in their own microcosmic society, mirror the hype, branding, and bravado of human sports culture. The storytelling itself also hides clever foreshadowing. Early in the film, as Theo is reprimanded by the garden foreman for his daydreaming, the foreman mentions the futility of trying to be something you're not. It's delivered in passing, but it quietly lays the foundation for the film's emotional arc. Later, when Turbo finally races at the Indy 500, it's this very defiance, the refusal to accept limitations, that becomes the film's thesis. The callback isn't just emotional. It's thematic, a cyclical reminder that identity is not inherited but earned. In another moment, right before Turbo gets sucked into the street racing car engine, a scene that serves as the catalyst for his transformation, he watches Guy Gagné on a television screen, delivering a motivational speech. No dream is too big, no dreamer too small. It's a line that becomes Turbo's mantra, etched into the core of the story. But what's fascinating is that the same phrase appears again, word for word, on a crumpled advertisement banner glimpsed during the climactic race, almost like the universe is reaffirming his journey. These visual callbacks are easy to miss but deeply satisfying to those who catch them. Guy Gagné himself is a walking, talking reference styled like a hybrid of multiple real-world race car champions. With a toothy grin reminiscent of Dale Earnhardt Jr., a name that echoes the flamboyance of real-life drivers like Sebastian Bourdais, and a personality dripping with the artificial charm of public relations training, Gagné is a pastiche of racing stardom. But look beyond the surface, and you'll find symbolic visual cues to his downfall. His personal logo, a stylized flaming G, starts the film front and center, glowing with power and dominance. But as Turbo's reputation grows, the G begins to appear in more desperate contexts. On promotional materials with fraying edges, on fan signs crossed out by marker, and finally, scorched into the track itself in a dramatic post-crash moment. His symbol goes from idol to warning, a subtle narrative of fading glory. The film also pays homage to classic underdog tales with visual storytelling that connects to cinematic history. Turbo's late-night practice runs are shot with visual nods to Rocky, the lone hero under the streetlights, training while the world sleeps. One sequence, where Turbo races a lawn-mower spinning blade, is framed almost identically to the iconic moment Rocky sprints up the steps of the Philadelphia Museum of Art. It's not just parody, it's thematic alignment. Like Balboa, Turbo fights not to defeat others, but to prove something to himself. There are even tributes to DreamWorks' own animation lineage. Hidden within the background of Tito's taco truck is a sticker of a toothy green ogre, Shrek himself, faded and half-peeled, as though suggesting that in this world, fairy tales exist quietly on the edges of reality. In one blink-can-you'll-miss-it moment, as Turbo races through the city, he dashes across a street named Bergen Boulevard, a sly reference to trolls. These tiny references subtly connect Turbo to the wider DreamWorks multiverse, suggesting that all these stories may, in some way, coexist. One of the most heartfelt details comes in the film's quieter moments. When Chet is rescued by Byrne and the crew after being captured by a crow, there's a beat, a single frame, where he sees Turbo's racing poster and stares at it just a moment longer than necessary. It's not just shock or awe, it's love. He doesn't say anything, but his eyes tell a story of pride, worry, and perhaps even apology. It's in that unspoken look that the brothers' entire relationship pivots, and the animators knew it. The subtle flicker in Chet's eyes was hand-animated with extra frames to emphasize the emotional shift. That's dedication to storytelling at its finest. Even the soundtrack holds hidden layers. The film's score, composed by Henry Jackman, weaves in motifs that subtly mirror Turbo's growth. In early scenes, his theme is hesitant, light, almost whimsical. As the film progresses, the theme gains tempo, percussion, and brass, literally accelerating. By the climax, the melody explodes into a full orchestral blast, symbolizing Turbo's complete transformation from a timid garden snail to a fearless racer. In the final race, there's a stunning slow-motion sequence where Turbo, damaged and exhausted, drags himself across the finish line. But look closely. The way he tucks in his eye stalks, the angle of his shell, the stretch of his glowing trail, all form the unmistakable silhouette of a car crossing the checkered line. It's not just a cool visual. It's the ultimate fusion of dream and identity. Turbo is the car now, not because he was changed by nitrous oxide or science fiction, but because he believed hard enough to transcend biology, doubt, and fear. Every Easter egg in Turbo, every hidden detail and subtle reference, isn't just clever, it's purposeful. They serve to deepen the story, to reward the observant, and to create a world that feels alive, layered, and lived in. They remind us that the magic of film isn't just in the story being told, but in all the stories waiting quietly in the background. waiting to be discovered. Because Turbo isn't just about a snail that got fast. It's about the power of belief, the beauty of obsession, and the thousands of tiny moments that build into something unforgettable. And just like its hero, if you blink, you might miss it. Before Turbo sped onto screens with its nitrous-infused charm and earnest message about chasing the impossible, it took a long, winding road behind the scenes, filled with unexpected inspirations, strange detours, and bold creative gambles. For a film about a snail with dreams of racing at the Indianapolis 500, the real-life journey was just as improbable and ambitious as the story itself. And like the very best underdog tales, the making of Turbo is packed with strange facts, serendipitous choices, and behind-the-scenes challenges that shaped it into the fast-paced, heartwarming adventure it became. It all began, rather unassumingly, with a garden snail. David Soren, the film's director, had long harbored the idea of crafting a story about one of the slowest creatures on Earth trying to go fast. The spark first ignited during a particularly sluggish summer afternoon in his own backyard. While watching his young son play in the garden, Soren became fascinated with a snail inching across the patio. And just like that, the seed of an idea was planted. It was absurd, hilarious, and completely implausible. What if that snail wanted to be a race car driver? That contradiction, slowness obsessed with speed, was the heartbeat of the story. And it wasn't long before Soren pitched the idea to DreamWorks Animation. But the pitch, though charming, was seen as a major risk. Talking animals were nothing new, but a snail protagonist? A high-stakes motorsports movie built around garden creatures? It sounded bizarre even for animation. Yet what swayed executives wasn't just the concept, but Soren's passion. And the fact that DreamWorks was looking for a fresh, unconventional hit. Once greenlit, Turbo presented immediate logistical hurdles. Snails aren't exactly expressive animals. Unlike dogs or cats, they have no eyebrows, no lips, and no traditional facial muscles to convey emotion. Animators were faced with the daunting task of turning this minimalist creature into a compelling, emotive lead character. The solution: the eye stalks. Turbo's eye stalks became his most expressive tools, allowing animators to simulate the nuances of human body language. Surprise, fear, hope, doubt, all through the bend, twitch, and widening of two stalks. It was a triumph of animated engineering, requiring custom-built rigs and motion dynamic systems tailored specifically to gastropod anatomy. And that was just the beginning. One of the most unexpected influences on the film's visual style came from real Formula One telemetry footage. The animation team studied hours of high-speed racing videos, focusing not just on the races themselves, but on the physics of motion, how cars cornered at extreme speeds, how tires flexed under G-force, how light shimmered across metal. They then had to reinterpret all of this through the filter of a snail's world. Turbo doesn't just move fast. His shell vibrates with kinetic energy, his slime trail glows like a nitrous boost, and his body stretches like a rubber band at top speed. It wasn't realistic, but it felt right. And then there was the sound. Snails don't make noise at all. So when it came to designing Turbo's signature zoom, the sound design team got creative. They recorded the high-pitched whine of electric RC cars, blended it with real engine roars from Indy cars, and then layered it with vacuum cleaner motors. That's right, Turbo's speed sound is part race car, part Hoover. The blend was strange, but strangely perfect. Voice casting offered its own kind of behind-the-scenes magic. Ryan Reynolds, known for his quick wit and earnest delivery, brought a wide-eyed optimism to Turbo that made him instantly likable. But perhaps the most unconventional casting decision was Samuel L. Jackson as Whiplash, the tough, no-nonsense leader of the racing snail crew. Jackson was reportedly hesitant at first, unsure how to voice a snail without it feeling silly. But after seeing early concept art and hearing the character's swaggering lines, he was all in. To match his vocal performance, the animators gave Whiplash subtle nods to Jackson's iconic persona: cool, confident, always one step ahead. But the real casting surprise came with the inclusion of rapper Snoop Dogg as Smooth Move. Snoop didn't just lend his voice, he brought a whole vibe. From his rhythmic delivery to his laid-back cadence, his performance oozed charm. Behind the scenes, Snoop reportedly improvised many of his lines, leading to unscripted moments that ended up in the final cut. His character's gliding entrance scene? That came directly from a Snoop suggestion. What if he just slides in like he's rolling through a club? It worked so well, the animators built the entire sequence around it. One of the biggest behind-the-scenes challenges was designing the race sequence at the Indianapolis 500. The production team traveled to the actual track multiple times, photographing, scanning, and sketching every detail. They used LiDAR scanning, a laser-based mapping system, to recreate the scale and curvature of the track with near-perfect accuracy. But when it came to animating the crowd, over 300,000 tiny, moving spectators, it quickly became a technical nightmare, rendering that many individuals would crash the animation software. So the team developed a clever cheat. They created digital crowd loops of 50 to 100 animated fans and tiled them across the stadium in randomized patterns, changing clothes and movements slightly to avoid repetition. It was one of the largest crowd simulations in DreamWorks history. And speaking of records, Turbo holds another strange distinction. It's one of the only films in DreamWorks' lineup to inspire a real-world racing initiative. Following the film's release, DreamWorks partnered with the IndyCar series to create a Turbo-themed race car for promotional events. Kids could meet Turbo at real racetracks, sit in his replica car, and even watch short animated skits at halftime shows. For a movie about dreaming beyond one's biology, it was a surreal moment. A fictional snail becoming a genuine racing ambassador. But Turbo's journey wasn't without controversy. Some critics argued that the film's plot bore too close a resemblance to Pixar's Cars, another animated tale about unlikely racers chasing glory. DreamWorks responded to the comparisons by emphasizing Turbo's unique biological angle, its urban Latino cultural flavor, and its focus on grassroots community themes. In truth, Turbo was never trying to compete with Cars. It was trying to tell a different kind of racing story, one that combined the hero's journey with science fiction, street food, and family dynamics. Another less-known twist: the original ending of Turbo was very different. Early drafts of the script ended on a darker note. After Turbo wins the Indy 500, his nitrous-infused abilities begin to fade. The idea was to show that greatness is temporary, that true legacy isn't about staying on top, but about what you inspire in others. The original final scene featured Turbo returning to the garden, no longer supercharged, watching a new generation of snails take to the track. It was poetic, but studio execs feared it would come across as a downer. So the ending was rewritten to celebrate triumph rather than nostalgia, with Turbo keeping his powers and becoming a local legend. The original scene, however, was animated as a test, and remains locked in the DreamWorks vault, unseen by the public. Even the film's marketing had its oddities. One international poster mistranslated the title to read Snail, Fast Fury, which inadvertently made it sound like a gritty action sequel. In some territories, Turbo was rebranded with taglines that focused on the science fiction element, while others leaned into the food truck culture. The movie became a kind of Rorschach test. Different audiences saw different themes. For kids, it was about going fast. For adults, it was about chasing passion. For others, it was simply about tacos and speed. One of the sweetest behind-the-scenes stories came from a production assistant who shared that Turbo's character was loosely inspired by not just Soren's son, but by his own late father, who had been a mechanic. The team added tiny details in the background as a tribute: a tool chest labeled Franklin's Fix-It, an air freshener shaped like a wrench, even a cameo photo of a mustache snail with a mechanic's cap tucked into Tito's taco truck dashboard. And perhaps most curiously, Turbo was one of the few animated films where real-world science was consulted, not for accuracy, but for plausibility. The production team reached out to biologists and asked, what would happen to a snail exposed to pure nitrous oxide? The answer? It would die instantly. But if we suspended disbelief? They asked. A biochemist replied, well, theoretically, the boost would cause extreme cellular hyperactivity. Like, really extreme. The team took that and ran with it, adding glowing trails, hyperspeed vision, and even a faint ripple effect in Turbo's shell when he accelerates. None of it is scientifically accurate, but it's all rooted in that one absurd question: and the equally absurd willingness to dream. That's the strange, beautiful irony of Turbo. For all its improbabilities, a racing snail, a taco-fueled pit crew, a snail going wheel to wheel with a pro driver, its heart is startlingly human. And perhaps that's why its strange facts and behind-the-scenes stories matter so much. Because every odd choice, every unexpected casting, every quiet tribute and noisy gamble came from a place of real belief. Just like Turbo, a little idea moving very fast. From its opening frames, Turbo never hides what kind of story it's trying to tell. It's loud, bright, and unapologetically sincere. A film that wears its heart on its sleeve and delivers its underdog message with neon-lit flair. But beneath the glossy animation and racing thrills lies a carefully layered narrative with emotional anchors and thematic weight that often catch audiences off guard. What makes Turbo linger in memory isn't just its fast pace or quirky characters. It's the way its key moments tap into something deeply human, blending spectacle with soul and fantasy with hope. These scenes don't just drive the plot forward. They shape the experience of watching the film. One of the earliest and most critical moments arrives when Theo, still a humble garden snail, is seen obsessively watching televised Indy 500 races on a battered TV screen nestled within an old tomato can. To others in the garden, he's just wasting time, indulging in an impossible fantasy. But to him, that small screen is a window into a bigger world. It's here that the movie first delivers one of its central themes, that inspiration can strike from anywhere, and that dreaming beyond your world isn't delusion, it's survival. The visual composition of the scene, with the warm glow of the TV bathing Theo in soft light, isolates him from the rest of the snails. It quietly introduces the loneliness of having a dream no one else believes in, a feeling instantly relatable to anyone who's ever felt like an outsider in their own community. That theme deepens in the pivotal sequence where Theo's life changes forever. Chasing a lost dream, literally. He finds himself swept onto a freeway, pulled into the engine of a street racing car, and doused with nitrous oxide. The moment is rendered with surreal brilliance. Time slows down. Sound warps. The animation turns electric, bathed in blue glow, as Theo's DNA bonds with the nitro. It's a wildly improbable transformation, but the film sells it by treating it with the weight of a superhero origin story. The audience isn't asked to believe in the science, we're asked to believe in the emotion behind it. This is the visual metaphor for metamorphosis, for the impossible becoming real. What makes this moment hit is that it's not just about speed, it's about awakening. The emotional aftershock of this transformation is cleverly conveyed not through grand heroics, but through an almost comic moment of realization. When Theo wakes up and accidentally speeds through the garden, scattering his fellow snails, the scene bursts with slapstick energy, but underneath, it's a scene of identity crisis. He doesn't yet understand what's happening to him. The editing here, fast cuts, zooms, a disoriented camera angle, mimics the sensation of losing control of one's own body. It's funny, but also poignant. Theo isn't instantly empowered, he's overwhelmed. The filmmakers allow this moment to breathe, underscoring that even dream fulfillment can be disorienting. As Turbo, his new identity now formed, ventures into the world beyond the garden. The film subtly shifts from origin story to fable. One of the most resonant moments occurs when Turbo is taken in by Tito, the taco truck co-owner who believes in lost causes. Their bond forms the emotional center of the movie. Tito isn't just comic relief, he's a human reflection of Turbo's journey. Like Turbo, Tito is dismissed by his peers. His taco truck is struggling, his ideas are mocked, and his brother Angelo constantly shoots down his ambitions. But Tito sees something in Turbo that no one else does. A spark, a reminder that it's okay to chase something crazy. When Tito enters Turbo into the Indy 500, the film reaches one of its boldest emotional beats. It says, out loud and without irony, that believing in something completely irrational is the most rational thing you can do when the world tells you no. The scene where Turbo first enters the stadium is pure cinematic magic. The massive scale of the track, the deafening roar of the crowd, and the sheer contrast between the tiny snail and the thunderous cars create a stunning visual metaphor for every underdog who's ever stood at the edge of something too big. The score swells, not with irony, but with reverence. The filmmakers lean hard into the absurdity, yet treat it with total seriousness, asking the audience to do the same. And they do, because this is more than a snail in a race. It's a moment that speaks to the core of why we watch stories in the first place. To believe. One of the most emotionally rich moments in the film comes at the midway point of the race, when Turbo crashes. For all the speed and excitement up to this point, the crash is rendered in eerie silence. The soundtrack fades. The camera lingers on the wreckage. Turbo's shell, once glowing with power, is cracked. The world blurs around him. And suddenly, all the noise and color of the film vanish into a stillness that echoes disappointment. Here, Turbo doesn't flinch. It lets us sit in the failure. The fantasy is broken. And for a few minutes, the dream seems truly dead. This is the film's turning point, and its most thematically potent message. Dreams aren't bulletproof. They get broken. They hurt. But what matters is what comes next. As Turbo limps away from the wreck, his friends rally around him. Even his old garden community, who once dismissed him, come to his aid. It's in this moment that the film transcends its premise. The story becomes not just about achieving greatness, but about the power of community to carry someone when they can't carry themselves. It's a beautiful reversal. Turbo, once the loner, now survives because others believe in him. The moment plays softly, but with enormous emotional weight. It tells us that resilience is not a solo act. It's a shared one. And then comes the climax, the final stretch of the Indy 500. Turbo, wounded but undeterred, finds himself neck and neck with his idol-turned rival, Guy Gagne. What unfolds is a dazzling fusion of animation and adrenaline, but it's the moral stakes that elevate it. Gagne, the champion who once seemed like the pinnacle of greatness, is revealed to be deeply insecure, willing to cheat to protect his legacy. Turbo, meanwhile, has no legacy, only belief. Their final duel isn't about speed. It's about values. When Turbo is flung across the track in the final seconds, scraping his cracked shell forward inch by inch, it mirrors every great sports film ever made. But here, the hero isn't built to win. He's built to persevere. The moment he crosses the finish line, just inches ahead, there's no slow-motion glory shot. No exaggerated victory, just a stunned silence. And then the eruption, not just from the crowd, but from the characters, from the audience. It's not triumph we feel. It's catharsis. Because what Turbo understands, and what its creators nail, is that the best cinematic victories are the ones that feel earned, vulnerable, and just barely possible. Critics noted this scene as a highlight not just for its visual flair, but for the way it encapsulates the film's heart. It's not flashy. It's not perfect. It's messy and emotional, and that's what makes it work. Even in its quieter moments, Turbo finds strength. Consider the epilogue. Turbo back in the garden, now celebrated, but still the same humble creature at heart. The final scene isn't a victory lap. It's a return home. The message is clear. Dreams may take you far, but they also show you where you belong. It's a warm, satisfying resolution that circles back to the film's beginning. The TV is gone. The races are over. But the dream lives on in others, in the community, in the belief that anything, however impossible, might just be possible after all. From a critical standpoint, Turbo remains a fascinating case study in balancing tone. It dances between goofy and sincere, absurd and inspirational. And while some critics were divided on its logic, few could deny its emotional authenticity. The film's key moments, his transformation, the crash, the final stretch, resonate because they speak to a larger truth about ambition and failure, about risk, about grit, and above all, about belief. In the grand arena of animated films, Turbo may not always be the loudest or the flashiest. But scene by scene, moment by moment, it delivers a story that understands the power of the small, the overlooked, the underestimated. And in doing so, it quietly earns a place in the hearts of those who believe that being too small or too slow is exactly what makes the win so sweet. It's not just a racing movie. It's not just a kid's fantasy. It's a full-throttle celebration of dreaming big and holding on, even when the shell cracks. It's one thing to dream up a story where a snail races in the Indy 500. It's another thing entirely to make an audience believe in it, to not just accept the absurdity but to cheer it on, to care. That was the challenge that DreamWorks Animation embraced when it greenlit Turbo. From the beginning, this film was a creative gamble, a story that defied realism, grounded in a world of talking mollusks, yet aimed to connect emotionally with viewers of all ages. Behind its colorful spectacle lies a production journey filled with innovation, ambition, and the kind of creative risk that echoes the very themes of the film itself. When director David Soren first pitched Turbo, it came from a personal place. The idea had been simmering for years, sparked by a simple observation: his young son's fascination with fast cars and his slow-moving garden snails. The contrast between speed and stillness became more than just a quirky premise. It evolved into a metaphor for dreaming beyond your limitations. That emotional truth became the heart of the film, and it was essential that every technical decision supported it. But turning that vision into a full-length feature meant overcoming some unusual challenges. First and foremost, there was the issue of scale. Snails are tiny. Race cars are massive. How do you put those two elements in the same frame and have it feel believable? The animators at DreamWorks faced a monumental task. They had to create a visual language that could scale up a snail's perspective without making the film feel like a parody. Every blade of grass, every droplet of water, every crack in the sidewalk had to feel colossal through Turbo's eyes. The world had to be immense, overwhelming, and alive. To do this, the team relied heavily on macrophotography studies. They took thousands of high-resolution close-ups of real-life textures, garden soil, leaves, car engines, asphalt, and used them as the basis for the film's environments. The result was a richly textured world that never felt cartoony. Even as snails zipped along with glowing trails and defied physics, the world around them felt grounded, tactile. The contrast helped sell the fantasy. Animating snails, though, posed another unique challenge. Snails aren't exactly expressive animals. They don't have eyebrows. They don't smile. Their faces are, quite literally, just eye stalks and mouths. The animators had to invent a new set of animation rules to make the characters emotive without losing their snail-like nature. Turbo's design, for instance, went through dozens of iterations. His eyes were given a wider range of motion, and his shell was used almost like a backpack, shifting subtly to mirror emotion. His movements became a fusion of traditional animation and something closer to dance. Every gesture had to compensate for his limited anatomy. But that wasn't the only place where the animators had to stretch the boundaries. The racing sequences demanded a level of intensity that few animated films had tackled before. Traditionally, speed is a hard thing to animate convincingly, especially when your protagonist is a 3-inch gastropod. So the team studied real-life IndyCar footage in minute detail. They broke down the physics of high-speed turns, tire skids, engine vibration, and used high-speed camera rigs to capture blur and motion in ways that would translate into the film's stylized aesthetic. To enhance the illusion of speed, DreamWorks implemented a cutting-edge motion blur system and dynamic depth-of-field rendering that mimicked the look of a live-action sports broadcast. This gave the races an almost documentary realism, despite the surreal protagonist. When Turbo blazes past a roaring crowd at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, the viewer can feel the vibrations in the air, the distortion of heat off the track, the crunch of gravel beneath the wheels. It's not just animation, it's immersion. The production team also worked closely with actual IndyCar professionals to ensure authenticity. Real race commentators Paul Page and Gino Torretta were brought on to voice themselves, lending credibility to the world building. Even more impressively, the production secured the rights to replicate the legendary Indianapolis 500 track in astonishing detail. Using aerial photography, laser scans, and GPS data, the team recreated the brickyard down to the last billboard and guardrail. For a movie about a snail, the realism of the racetrack was no joke. One of the more fascinating behind-the-scenes anecdotes revolves around the film's use of lighting. To differentiate Turbo's world before and after his transformation, the lighting team employed a subtle shift in palette. The garden scenes are warm, earthy, and slightly desaturated, reflecting the monotony and smallness of Theo's life. After his nitro-infused transformation, the world becomes vibrant, electric. Neon blues, pulsating oranges, and dynamic light flares dominate the screen. It's not just a stylistic shift, it's a visual metaphor for awakening. Turbo's new powers literally changed the way he sees the world. And speaking of that transformation scene, it remains one of the film's most ambitious technical sequences. Creating the nitrous oxide injection sequence meant blending traditional animation with advanced particle simulation. Tiny glowing droplets swirl inside a digitized representation of Turbo's shell, each behaving according to its own set of physical rules. It's not just spectacle, it's symbolic alchemy. The animators spent months perfecting the timing, the lighting, the movement. When Turbo emerges, trailing bioluminescent streaks of light, it feels earned. Magical, even, and that's not easy to do in a medium already full of magic. The voice cast brought its own layer of complexity and brilliance to the process. Ryan Reynolds, who voiced Turbo, was involved early in development, helping shape the emotional rhythm of the character. Reynolds recorded multiple takes for each line, offering variations in tone and pace that allowed the animators to fine-tune Turbo's personality. His delivery, earnest but never cloying, helped ground the film's heart in a believable voice. Meanwhile, Samuel L. Jackson's turn as Whiplash added unexpected edge to the supporting cast. His scenes, recorded over several sessions, often included improvised lines that were later animated around. The interplay between Jackson's booming confidence and the quirky absurdity of his snail crew added a layer of adult-savvy humor that elevated the film's tone. Behind the scenes, the cast was encouraged to riff off each other, sometimes recording ensemble sessions, rare in animation, to capture authentic chemistry. Music played a pivotal role as well. Composer Henry Jackman created a score that balanced two worlds: the delicate, string-based melodies of Turbo's humble beginnings and the pounding, percussive adrenaline of Race Day. The musical motifs intertwine as the film progresses, symbolizing Turbo's journey from garden to greatness. A blend of traditional orchestration and electronic elements helped reflect the fusion of natural and supercharged worlds, grounding the surreal in something emotionally true. But it wasn't just music and voice that gave Turbo its soul. The editing process was deeply iterative. Whole scenes were rewritten, reboarded, and re-rendered based on early screenings. In one version of the film, Turbo had a more comedic tone throughout, but test audiences responded more strongly to the emotional beats. As a result, the filmmakers leaned into sincerity. They weren't afraid to let quiet moments linger. They added silence where necessary. In doing so, they built a rhythm that never rushed the story, even when the movie was about speed. One of the most unconventional production challenges came from marketing integration. Because Turbo was released during a time when DreamWorks was expanding its reach across media, it was accompanied by a major push that included a Netflix spin-off series, toys, and even cross-promotions with IndyCar. The challenge was to keep the film's artistic identity intact amid this commercial blitz. The creative team fought to maintain the emotional authenticity of the story, ensuring that Turbo never became just a brand mascot. His story had to matter, and thanks to a steadfast narrative team, it did. Looking back, Turbo stands as a testament to what happens when technical excellence and emotional storytelling go hand in hand. It could have easily become a gimmick movie, a one-joke concept stretched thin. But instead, through painstaking animation, innovative visual design, and a commitment to heartfelt storytelling, it became something more. A film that, while often underrated, pushed the boundaries of what animation could express. Not just in visuals, but in spirit. At its core, Turbo is a movie about exceeding your limits. And fittingly, its production was defined by a team constantly pushing theirs. From animators who turned snails into action heroes, to lighting designers who crafted entire emotional arcs through color, to sound engineers who sculpted race day chaos out of code, Turbo was a triumph of imaginative will. Every frame, every line, every roar of the engine was built not just to entertain, but to inspire. To say that no dream is too big, no creature too small, and no idea too crazy to chase if you believe in it enough. In that sense, Turbo is more than just a movie. It's a handcrafted belief engine, made with pixels, performance, and an unshakable sense of possibility. And that's what truly makes it a technical and emotional achievement worth celebrating. Turbo, 2013, weaves a story that is much more than a whimsical tale about a snail who dreams of racing in the Indy 500. Beneath its vibrant animation and thrilling racing sequences lies a rich tapestry of themes and symbolism that resonate deeply with audiences, reflecting universal truths and social commentary. The narrative's heart beats with ideas about aspiration, identity, community, and the courage to break free from imposed limitations, inviting viewers not just to be entertained, but to reflect on their own lives and society. At its core, Turbo is a celebration of dreams and the human or snail spirit's relentless pursuit of greatness, no matter how improbable. From the outset, Theo, the garden snail who becomes Turbo, embodies the desire to transcend one's circumstances. His fascination with speed and racing is a metaphor for ambition, an urge that feels almost rebellious in a world that sees him as small, slow, and insignificant. The film captures this yearning beautifully, highlighting how society often boxes individuals into narrow roles based on preconceived notions. Theo's initial life, crawling slowly among garden debris and overlooked by the human world, mirrors the limitations many feel imposed by social structures, expectations, or self-doubt. His transformation into Turbo symbolizes the breaking of these barriers, both literal and metaphorical. This theme of breaking free is reinforced through the film's emphasis on identity. Turbo's journey is not just about speed. It is about self-discovery and embracing what makes one unique. The shell he carries, often seen as a cumbersome burden, becomes a symbol of his individuality and strength. While the shell represents safety and home, it is also the very thing that marks him as different from the fast creatures around him. Turbo's evolving relationship with his shell parallels how individuals learn to accept and celebrate their own quirks and differences rather than trying to conform. It is a subtle yet powerful message about self-worth and the courage to shine authentically in a world that often values conformity. The supporting characters amplify these themes, creating a community of misfits who each struggle with their own limitations and insecurities. Whiplash, the hardened racer snail voiced by Samuel L. Jackson, embodies skepticism and survival instinct shaped by past failures. His tough exterior and initial reluctance to believe in Turbo's dream highlight the tension between cynicism and hope, a tension many face when confronting change. Meanwhile, the other snails represent a microcosm of society's diversity, each with unique skills, stories, and personalities, contributing to the collective goal. Their camaraderie underscores the film's message that success is rarely a solo journey. It champions community support, friendship, and collaboration as essential forces that uplift individuals toward their potential. Symbolism in Turbo extends to the racing world itself. The Indy 500 track, with its intense speed and roaring crowds, serves as a metaphor for the broader societal arena. Competitive, high stakes, and often intimidating. Turbo's presence as a snail on this colossal stage symbolizes the underdog's audacity to claim space where they are not expected. The race becomes a ritual of transformation, where personal limitations are tested and redefined. In this sense, the film channels the archetypal hero's journey, with Turbo's trials on the track mirroring the universal quest for purpose and validation. Moreover, the nitrous oxide that grants Turbo his superspeed operates as a symbolic catalyst of change. It's not just a plot device but a representation of latent potential unlocked through unexpected means. An allegory for moments in life when individuals find sudden strength or clarity that propels them beyond previous boundaries. This element also invites reflection on how external forces, whether technological, social, or emotional, can empower people to transcend obstacles. Another layer of symbolism is found in the contrast between the natural world of the garden and the mechanized realm of racing. The garden, with its earthy colors and slow pace, represents safety, comfort, and the known, while the racetrack stands for challenge, risk, and the unknown. Turbo's movement between these spaces reflects the tension many feel between comfort zones and the pursuit of dreams. The film subtly critiques complacency while acknowledging the comfort of familiarity, encouraging a balance between security and ambition. From a social commentary perspective, Turbo touches on themes of inclusivity and the celebration of diversity. The snail's community is a patchwork of personalities and backgrounds, each valued for their distinct contributions. This depiction promotes a message of acceptance and empowerment, countering narratives that prioritize uniformity or dominance. It challenges viewers to reconsider what defines strength or success, suggesting that it is multifaceted and inclusive. The film also comments on societal pressures related to achievement and the concept of winning. Turbo's journey reveals that true success is not merely about crossing the finish line first, but about self-belief, perseverance, and the impact on others. This nuance pushes back against hyper-competitive cultural norms, advocating for a more compassionate and holistic understanding of accomplishment. It reminds audiences that the pursuit itself, with all its struggles and growth, holds intrinsic value. Further, the relationship between Turbo and his human owner, Tito, subtly explores themes of cross-cultural friendship and the breaking of barriers between different worlds. Tito's enthusiasm and unwavering support reflect the importance of allies who encourage and believe in us. Their bond transcends species and stereotypes, embodying a spirit of empathy and connection that resonates in a diverse society. The film's visual motifs reinforce its thematic core. Speed lines and glowing trails around Turbo are not just stylistic flourishes but visual representations of energy, transformation, and the invisible forces that drive change. The recurring imagery of racing flags, green for go, checkered for finish, symbolizes stages of growth and the ongoing journey of life. Even the diverse colors of the snail's shells hint at individuality amid unity. On a broader cultural level, Turbo resonates with the idea of the American dream reinterpreted for modern times. It captures the hope that anyone, regardless of their starting point, can achieve greatness through hard work and belief. However, it tempers this with realism, recognizing obstacles, setbacks, and the importance of community. The film subtly critiques simplistic success narratives by showing that dreams require resilience and support. In sum, Turbo is a story layered with meaning that speaks to universal experiences through the lens of an unlikely hero. It urges audiences to embrace their dreams fiercely, honor their uniqueness, and cherish the connections that sustain them. Its symbolism and social commentary are not heavy-handed but woven seamlessly into the vibrant world and characters, creating a rich narrative fabric that invites reflection without losing its joyful spirit. As viewers follow Turbo's thrilling ride, they are reminded that greatness often comes in unexpected packages, and that every dreamer deserves a chance to race toward the horizon. Turbo, 2013, unfolds not just as a vibrant story of a garden snail's unlikely quest to become a racing champion, but as a vivid showcase of masterful cinematic techniques and compelling visual storytelling that amplify its heart and humor. From the very first frames, the movie envelopes the viewer in a world where the ordinary transforms into the extraordinary through the director's clear vision, meticulous animation, and an inventive use of sound and music that together elevate Turbo beyond a simple animated adventure. Every shot, color choice, and sound cue is crafted to immerse the audience in Turbo's fast-paced journey, creating a sensory experience that mirrors the thrills and emotional beats of the narrative. The film's visual style immediately distinguishes itself through its bright, saturated color palette, which captures the lush vibrancy of the garden world while hinting at the extraordinary hidden beneath the everyday. This use of color is far from arbitrary. It subtly mirrors Turbo's inner transformation. The garden, where Turbo starts his life, is filled with warm earth tones, soft greens, and gentle lighting that evoke a sense of safety and slow-paced life. These visuals underscore the initial constraints on Turbo's existence: a snail's slow, measured pace in a sprawling, overwhelming environment. Yet as the story accelerates and Turbo gains his incredible speed, the palette shifts dynamically to cooler blues, energetic reds, and electrifying neon glows that pulse with the sensation of velocity and adrenaline. This deliberate chromatic progression not only reflects the character's arc, but also keeps viewers viscerally engaged, feeling the emotional tempo through color alone. Cinematography in Turbo cleverly manipulates scale and perspective, essential for a film where the protagonist is literally tiny yet dreams big. The camera work embraces an almost childlike sense of wonder by frequently placing viewers at the snail's eye level, enlarging the mundane into an epic playground. Shots that zoom in on dewdrops or blades of grass transform these natural elements into towering obstacles or gleaming racetrack barriers, amplifying the tension and drama of scenes. Close-ups on Turbo's expressive eyes and subtle shell movements allow the audience to connect emotionally with a character whose physical form might otherwise seem unassuming. This visual intimacy is balanced by sweeping panoramic shots of the racecourse and bustling urban landscapes, which contrast the snail's smallness with the vastness of his ambitions. The fluid movement of the camera often mimics Turbo's newfound speed, with sweeping pans, quick zooms, and dynamic tracking shots that thrust the viewer into the heart of the action. Editing choices in Turbo skillfully maintain the pacing and rhythm that mirror the protagonist's journey from slow beginnings to breathtaking velocity. The film opens with a languid pace, where longer takes and gentle cuts allow the audience to savor the garden's tranquility. As Turbo discovers his powers, the editing becomes progressively faster, with quicker cuts and more kinetic sequences that build adrenaline. The juxtaposition of calm and chaos through editing tempo highlights the contrast between Turbo's former life and his new exhilarating reality. Action scenes, especially the Indy 500 race, employ rapid cross-cutting between Turbo and other racers, as well as between spectators and pit crews, weaving together multiple perspectives to heighten suspense. This editing style not only intensifies the drama, but also immerses the viewer in the overwhelming sensory overload of a real racing event. Sound design plays a pivotal role in Turbo's storytelling, adding depth and nuance to the on-screen action. The film's soundscape is rich with layered audio cues that transform the garden environment into a lively, immersive world. Everyday noises, the rustling of leaves, the drip of water, the scuttle of tiny feet, are amplified and interwoven with exaggerated sonic effects when Turbo taps into his speed. The hum and roar of the Indy 500 track are crafted with meticulous detail, capturing the thunderous engines, cheering crowds, and the subtle mechanical sounds of pit stops. These authentic sound elements ground the fantastical narrative in a sensory reality. More importantly, sound bridges emotional gaps, such as the quiet moments where Turbo contemplates his dreams or faces setbacks, where ambient silence or soft melodies invite introspection. The sound design subtly underscores the emotional texture of the film, from exhilarating highs to quiet vulnerability. Music further intensifies Turbo's emotional and narrative arcs. Composer Henry Jackman delivers a score that pulses with energy and optimism, blending orchestral elements with contemporary beats that appeal to a broad audience. The music dynamically shifts to echo Turbo's mood and the scene's tone, from playful, light-hearted motifs in scenes of friendship and camaraderie, to driving, fast-tempo rhythms that heighten the tension and excitement during races. Music cues often swell at pivotal moments, such as Turbo's first burst of super speed or the climactic final race, reinforcing the stakes and emotional payoff. The soundtrack also includes popular songs that complement the film's youthful energy and urban setting, creating a cultural connection that feels authentic and engaging. This carefully curated blend of score and songs ensures the film's pacing never lags and the emotional beats land with maximum impact. Stylistically, Turbo incorporates unique visual flourishes that define director David Soren's distinct approach to animated storytelling. The film employs stylized motion blur and speed lines, effects more often seen in comic books or anime, which visually dramatize Turbo's acceleration and kinetic energy. These artistic choices not only convey speed, but add a layer of fun and exaggeration that matches the film's playful tone. The snail characters themselves are designed with exaggerated features, oversized eyes, expressive shells, and quirky gestures that maximize emotional expressiveness, vital in conveying character without spoken words. The animation seamlessly balances realism with cartoonish charm, making the characters relatable while inhabiting a fantastical world. The integration of CGI technology allows for breathtaking renderings of both the natural world and the high-octane race sequences. Fluid animation of Turbo's shell glowing and emitting sparks during his speed bursts creates a visual spectacle that thrills audiences of all ages. The environmental details, from the texture of wet leaves to the glint of sunlight on Turbo's shell, reflect a dedication to realism that grounds the fantasy. This blend of meticulous detail with stylized exaggeration gives Turbo a unique visual identity, setting it apart from other animated features. Throughout the film, the interplay of visual and auditory storytelling forms a cohesive experience that draws viewers deeply into Turbo's world. Scenes are crafted not merely for spectacle, but to communicate emotion, character growth, and thematic resonance. For instance, the quiet, slow-motion moments where Turbo observes the world around him are accompanied by gentle light and sound design, inviting empathy and reflection. Contrastingly, the frantic race sequences are a symphony of rapid visuals, roaring engines, pounding music, and intense editing, engaging the senses fully and making the audience feel every twist and turn of the track. The director's vision is clearly one of blending heart with exhilaration, ensuring that Turbo is as much an emotional journey as a visual thrill ride. By leveraging advanced animation techniques alongside classic storytelling devices like pacing, sound cues, and color symbolism, Turbo creates an immersive cinematic experience that is both accessible and rich with detail. It invites audiences to feel the exhilaration of speed, the weight of dreams, and the joy of community, all while marveling at the artistry behind the scenes. In sum, Turbo's cinematic techniques and visual storytelling are integral to its success. The film's vibrant colors, inventive camera work, dynamic editing, layered sound design, and evocative music coalesce into a sensory feast that amplifies the narrative's heart and humor. Director David Soren's stylistic choices and the animation team's technical prowess craft a world where a tiny snail's big dream feels not just possible, but exhilaratingly real. The film's ability to harmonize these elements ensures that Turbo is remembered not only as a charming underdog story, but also as a visually and sonically captivating piece of cinema that invites audiences to experience speed, emotion, and hope in every frame. Turbo, 2013, stands out not only for its vibrant animation and inspiring story, but also for the remarkable chemistry among its talented voice cast, the dynamic atmosphere that shaped its production, and the lasting impressions it left on audiences worldwide. At the heart of the film's success lies an ensemble whose energy and interplay bring genuine warmth and humor, elevating a story about a small snail with big dreams into something that resonates deeply with viewers of all ages. This dynamic is rooted in the collaboration and camaraderie fostered behind the scenes, which translated seamlessly into performances full of life and personality. Ryan Reynolds, voicing Turbo, carries the film with his trademark charm and wit, infusing the character with a blend of youthful exuberance and determination. His delivery feels spontaneous yet deliberate, capturing Turbo's journey from an underdog with an impossible dream to a confident hero embracing his potential. Reynolds' comedic timing adds an engaging layer to the dialogue, making Turbo's inner thoughts feel relatable and sincere. However, what truly amplifies the impact of his performance is the chemistry he shares with the rest of the cast. Paul Giamatti, lending his voice to the cautious and skeptical snail Chet, acts as the perfect foil to Turbo's impulsiveness. Their vocal interplay strikes a delicate balance between exasperation and affection, reflecting the classic dynamic of an older sibling or best friend who both grounds and supports the protagonist. The natural rhythm in their exchanges breathes life into the characters' relationship, making it feel authentic rather than scripted. Behind the scenes, the genuine chemistry among the cast and the collaborative spirit of the production team amplified the film's magic. The playful improvisations, the close interaction between voice actors and animators, and the shared passion for storytelling created a dynamic environment where creativity thrived. This atmosphere shines through the screen, giving life and authenticity to the characters and their relationships. It's this blend of talent and teamwork that transforms Turbo from just another animated film into a timeless story of aspiration and courage. Audience reactions have affirmed Turbo's place in the hearts of many, inspiring fans with its message that no dream is too big, no goal too impossible. It sparked conversations, fan art, and an enduring cultural footprint that extends beyond its initial release. Critically, it was praised for its energetic storytelling and compelling characters, solidifying its role as a beloved entry in modern animation. Its impact continues to ripple through pop culture, reminding us all to chase our passions with unrelenting spirit. So, as we wrap up this deep dive into Turbo, remember that it's more than just an animated movie about a fast snail. It's a story that champions hope, perseverance, and the power of believing in yourself against all odds. It invites us to embrace our unique speed and carve our own paths, no matter how small we start or how big our dreams might seem. This is the essence that makes Turbo a standout film, an uplifting celebration of the underdog spirit that lives in us all. If you love this breakdown, give the video a thumbs up and subscribe for more deep dives into the world of cinema. Let's keep exploring movies together. There's a whole universe of stories waiting to be unraveled, and I can't wait to take that journey with you. Until next time, keep dreaming, keep watching, and keep embracing the magic of movies.